The sight made him smile as he remembered chasing fireflies around the barn with his brother. Funny how that was the first thing that came to mind. He wondered if Ben would lord his past indiscretions over him, like the time he'd accidentally set that fire in the gym at homecoming senior year. It was strange, thinking of Ben as the new county sheriff. Cam wasn't entirely sure how he felt about that. He wasn't sure how he felt about a lot of things. He sat in the driveway, unable to move. His mouth went dry and he reached for a beer. The snap hiss was the only sound in the night. He slammed half the can, then downed the rest as he pulled the keys from the ignition and stepped out of the truck. The urge to rush out of the open space nearly propelled him into a run. He forced himself to walk through the moonlight to the house. He sucked in deep breaths while he took the stairs 2 at a time, but at least he was still walking. He was not afraid of the dark. The front door creaked and groaned as he pushed it open, the screen door slapping behind him with a crack that made him jump. He stood in the foyer, just breathing. This was where he grew up. This is where he belonged, right? He tried to ignore the nagging emotions as he looked around the empty foyer. It was surreal, standing there on the old braided rug in the entryway. The house smelled like apples and cinnamon, even though no one had been living there for a while. Mom and Dad had downsized a few years ago, if Cam remembered correctly, and the place had been empty since then. The house had been built with massive logs, which also stood as rustic columns throughout the great room. The deer he'd shot when he was 12 was still mounted on the wall over the fireplace, right next to his brother's moose. A shiver ran across his skin. Christ, it was cold here. It was the last week of June. It wasn't supposed to be in the 40s. He wanted a sweatshirt, his bed, and another beer. The front door suddenly loomed larger, consuming every particle of visible light. His heart pounded in his chest, and he could almost feel the weight of his Kevlar on his head. He stood and breathed, hard and deep, willing the panic to retreat. Relieved he was alone as he rushed to the ancient truck, he dragged his army-issued duffel bag and assault pack from the back seat. He was still breathing hard when he slammed the front door behind him, locking out the demons of the night. He dropped the duffel bag inside the door and carried his backpack and a fresh beer up the stairs to the bedroom he'd once shared with his brother. He stopped, then turned, heading to the master bedroom. It was his now. "You're not a boy anymore," his mom had written in her last email. But it didn't feel right, sleeping in his parents' room. He sat on the edge of his bed and pulled the .45 out of the holster he wore at the small of his back. He dropped the clip and cleared the weapon, checking the chamber automatically and catching the ejected round before it fell. It was cold and smooth against his palm. Comforting. One by one, he slid the rounds from the clip. One by one, he reseated them, then fed the clip into the weapon. He reached into the front pocket of his assault pack, palming a plastic bottle. He popped the top, pouring out its contents. The Ambien felt like 100 smooth Tic Tacs, but their appeal was greater. They called to him, promising untainted sleep. One by one, he counted them, dropping them back into the bottle. 116. One less than the night before. He checked the safety on his .45 and set it on the bed next to him. He didn't want to think about what would happen when the pills ran out. How much would he need to drink to sleep without them? But that was 116 days away. He'd figure it out when the time came. Chapter 2. Get your lazy ass up! Cam didn't move. The deeply ingrained practice of waking up in absolute stillness kept him from shooting out of the bed and tackling his younger brother. "Mom and Dad saw you pull in late last night," Ben said, towing Cam's assault pack at the foot of the bed. "They want you at the house for family breakfast." Which meant all of the aunts and uncles and cousins. Cam groaned, dragging his pillow over his face. He inhaled the clean scent deeply, counting slowly and waiting for his heart to stop pounding in his ears. "Tell them I'm not here, that you couldn't find me."